So let's talk about the excess defense articles, also known as EDA, and how Biden could help Ukraine without needing congressional authorization, thus circumventing the blockade of funds by the MAGA wing of the GOP. Now, EDA covers surplus military equipment that the Department of Defense has identified as no longer needed for its own defense requirements. This equipment can range from small arms and vehicles to aircraft and even ships. Once declared excess, these items can be offered to foreign countries through sale, grant, or lease under the authority of the Arms Export Control Act. Now, the EDA program aims to support U.S. allies and partners by enhancing their defensive capabilities, and it promotes interoperability with the U.S. and reinforces regional and global security. Now, the transfer of EDA is managed by the Defense Security Cooperation Agency, and it is somewhat of a complex but completely legal route to support Ukraine, specifically by providing them the artillery shells that we all know Ukraine urgently needs. Previously, Ukrainian forces could match Russian artillery by firing up to 6,000 shells a day. However, due to the funding blockade over the last 4 months, this number has dwindled to just 2,000 shells per day, while Russian forces are bolstered by supplies from North Korea and Iran and are launching up to 10,000 shells daily. Now, this imbalance is significantly impacting battle dynamics and largely is what led to the fall of Avdiivka. Now, despite the current political deadlock in Congress, President Biden has this mechanism at his disposal to assist Ukraine. U.S. law allows the president to sell or give away excess military equipment with an annual cap of $500 million on the value of such transfers. Interestingly, though, the law does not directly specify how the president should value ammunition and only has vague references on the value of equipment. This theoretically means Biden could allow for the sale of ammo as low as 1 penny per round of ammunition for artillery systems. Biden has used the excess defense articles before. He provided indirect support to Ukraine through third-party countries like Greece and Ecuador. These nations received U.S. military surplus and in turn provided Ukraine with their excess weapons. This method has facilitated the transfer of things such as helicopters, rocket launchers, air defense systems, and more to Ukraine without any direct transactions necessary. Although most artillery ammunition is rightfully held for U.S. forces, and I know we don't want to run out for ourselves in case of a major conflict, there are huge stockpiles of unused ammo that the U.S. will likely never use. These are 155mm dual-purpose improved cluster munitions, also known as DPICMs. These older munitions, deemed unreliable due to their 14% dud rate, have been categorized as excess by the U.S. Army. The U.S. Army has over 4.5 million rounds of this older DPICM ammunition, which ostensibly is only about 100 days worth of a sustained Ukrainian fire, but it is something, and something is better than nothing, and it would actually save the U.S. on decommissioning and destruction costs. And I get it, it sounds crappy to send less reliable munitions, but again, something is better than nothing. Now, the Biden administration has previously sent these same DPICMs to Ukraine outside of the EDA framework, but these 4.6 million rounds could be designated as excess and donated directly. The law stipulates only that the weapons must be given as is and where is, meaning the U.S. cannot cover the shipping costs, except for weapons obviously located in Germany, which can be transferred to a convenient location for the Ukrainians just to pick up. Now, President Biden can use the Excess Defense Articles program to transfer other pieces of military equipment, including fighting vehicles, tanks, artillery, to Ukraine as well, provided these items are declared excess to the needs of the U.S. military. Since they are deemed obsolete, they can be sold for up to 90% off their value to Ukraine or even donated, and other nations could help pay for the shipping. Now, the decision to transfer specific items such as infantry fighting vehicles, tanks, or other types of equipment depends on several factors, including the strategic needs of Ukraine and the availability of the surplus items within the U.S. military. Both criteria generally are met given what we've seen with this war. Now, there are hundreds of tanks, fighting vehicles, and logistics vehicles on the list that could go. The U.S. in 2018 sent 162 obsolete Abrams tanks to Morocco. Croatia received Bradleys in 2020. These are items that are already on the list and can be granted to Ukraine by the president. Now, had Biden authorized it in late 2023, he could have done it again in 2024. I'm not entirely sure why there is hesitation to employ this strategy by the Biden administration. Perhaps it is a political issue with the election looming later this year. But a recent Pew Research poll showed 74% of Americans view the war in Ukraine as important to U.S. national interests, 43% describe it as very important, and 59% of Americans describe the war in Ukraine as important to them personally when asked. Now, perhaps Biden is hesitant to use the EDA due to a preference for securing new funding, allowing for a broader range of military support for Ukraine. Basically, if he pulls the trigger on EDA, Congress may be less inclined to provide broader funding. Yet, with the likelihood of additional funding from a Republican-controlled Congress appearing more slim by the day, leveraging the EDA authority to supply Ukraine with much-needed ammunition could be an immediate and impactful course of action in the interim. EDA would also short-circuit the money argument that Republicans keep bringing forward, as there would be no funding requirement to execute this. Ukraine would have to pay for the shipping, and the U.S. could get these items off their books, saving them decommissioning money. Any Republican voicing opposition would immediately be seen as absolutely pro-Russian because there's no cost to the U.S. here. The cost was already sunk, likely decades ago at this point, for purchasing these items. Now, Congress could step in and require approval for these transfers to Ukraine. They could also impose constraints and conditions on the transfers. But doing this for Ukraine is unlikely to pass either the House or the Senate, so Biden could probably move on with this without any kind of hindrances. Either way, President Biden hasn't fully used this program, and I'm kind of left wondering why.